Welcome back, friends. This is the second part of making weather app using JavaScript. In the previous part, we worked on design part. We have covered a lot of important topics in HTML and CSS, such as structuring your files inside text editor, how to comment your HTML documents for others to understand your code, and finally covered topics such as Flexbox, grid, CSS variables, responsive design, and much more. You can watch that video using the link in the description or above here. In this video, we will dive into the world of JavaScript and make our design interactive. In this part, we will cover a lot of important topics such as fetching data from API, DOM manipulation, event delegation, and much more. Let's not waste time and start the project. Alright guys, to get our weather data we need to have an API. So I am going to open the OpenWeather API website. If you don't have an account, make sure to create your account. Then click Sign In button and log in using your own credential. After login, you will see this page. First of all, we need to have an API key, so click API keys here. You can see I have already generated some API keys, and you can create a new one as follows. Come back to your JavaScript file and create a variable for it. Then click API, API doc, and this is our API URL. Make sure to copy it. And we just need up to this part of the URL. The rest will be dynamically. Alright, now we need a library to format our date. In this case, I am using Luxon. Just copy the first one and paste it inside the body of your HTML code. Amazing! Now we have our API link and API key. Let's import Luxon also. Great! We are starting our project by creating our API URL. Our function will have two parameters. Don't worry, I will explain them one by one. Inside here, we need to create a new URL. New URL.search is equal to new URL search params and pass search params. App ID, which is our API key, and change them all to be string. Alright, now you might be wondering what we just did here. No worries, let me explain for you. So following this API URL, we have weather type variable, and the type will be weather. So we will pass this dynamically. Following that, we have search params, which helps us search for specific location. In OpenWeather API, we need to write $Q and our location name. For example, New York. And finally, we have this in mark and our API key. That is it. That's what we did in this function. Alright, now our URL is ready, and we need to fetch this URL to get the data out of it. Finally, return a JSON type of our items. Now let's create a new function to generate our data. We have a dynamic search params variable. Now get data from create URL function. The weather type is weather, and we pass search params as second argument. Return data. Now let's see if we have data in the console log. So to be able to see the data, we need to print our function inside DOM content loaded. So once the app is loaded, this function will be called. Alright. New, let's create our search params variable, which is equal to object, and Q is New York instance. Finally, pass that in this function. Cool. Now let's check it in the browser. Amazing. We have the data, but we need to get only the data that we need in our app. So to do that, we need to write then, once the data is fetched, we want to pass it to a new function. Let's create the function down here and get data. So we need to destructure our data as follow. You can see them in the console also. And finally, return them all in a single object. Now let's log the data again. You can see we have more structured data in the console. That is amazing. Our data is ready. Now let's manipulate the DOM to replace our weather data with the new data. To do that, we need to first create a function to fetch data. Let's fetch the data. Pass the search params and units to the function. So units is for specifying whether we want metrics degree or imperial. Let's create units variable up here and set it to be metrics by default. It's important for change from Celsius degree to Fahrenheit degree. All right, we will pass this data to a new function to print it in DAM. And we start from left side data. Okay, we need to find the data in HTML file and copy the child data only, not the parent. All right, now let's create a variable first for degree type, and then create an other variable for weather data and paste the HTML code inside the template string. Cool. Now you can change the data with dynamic data. Now we need to get the parent div using document.querySelector and change the inner HTML with our new variable. Now let's call the function down here. Seems we have a problem with image. Let's find out. Okay, you need to write this code following image URL. Cool. Now we have a dynamic data in the browser. But here we have an issue. If I refresh the page, it shows my dummy data for a second and then dynamic data. So to solve this issue, we just add a loader. Let's make it inside HTML file first. Then open the CSS file and write the following code there. Great. Now we have a loading. We need to have a remove CSS class to call it when the dynamic data is loaded. All right, now let's open the JS file and set a condition. If we have response data, then target the loading class and append the remove class to stop it from displaying. Now, if we refresh the page, we see the loading first and the dynamic data. That is great. Now let's do the same thing for location. Just copy the HTML code. Change the data. Now replace the inner HTML with the new variable. All right, now let's repeat the same process for weather situation. Great, we are done. Now let's work on searching location using this search bar. First of all, let's grab them in JavaScript file. Now we need to set an event listener to the search button. Inside here, we need to have our search params, but the value for Q will be our input value. Need to call the fetch function to update the UI instantly and finally clear the input. Now let's test it. Alright, seems we have an error. It's because our search params variable should be let not constant. Also, we need to add .value here to get the input value. Let's test it again. Amazing! Now we are able to search for new locations. Our left side is finished. Now let's move to the right side. Let's make a function for and get the data from fetchData function. Great. Now we are repeating the same process as we did in the left side. Get HTML data and change their data into a dynamic data. In this part, we need to format our time. So for that, I am going to make a new function and get second with on. To format the time, we need to grab the date time dot from seconds, now pass the second variable, dot set zone, dot to format, and the type of our format. If you don't know what is this, you can check Luxon documentation to get more info about different formats. Now let's pass our function there. Great. We have our times formatted. Let's repeat the same process for other data. Alright guys, we have successfully changed our weather data into dynamic data. Now let's work on changing our weather type from Celsius to Fahrenheit and vice versa. First, we need to grab the buttons in JavaScript and set an add event listener to both of them. First of all, let's change their colors after clicking. So when we click the C degree button, the F degree class list will be removed and the C degree class list will be active. We are going to do the vice versa in the next button. Great. Now you can see we can change the button's colors for both. Amazing. Now inside the C degree, we want the unit to be changed to metric, and inside the F degree, we want it to be changed into imperial. Now take a look at the left side. We can change the degree type easily. Now we need to change our weather's type sign from C to F and vice versa. For that, I am going to make a new function and receive degree. Now if unite is equal to metric, we want to show C, otherwise we will show F. Now let's change this degree to our new function. And by the way, we don't need this degree variable anymore. Great. We are able to change the degree signs also. Seems I forget to change this data here. Let's make it dynamically. Amazing. We are done with our weather data. Now let's get our users' data from their GPS. Up here we need to have an any function. Then call navigator.geolocation.getCurrentPosition. It has a callback function and give us some data. Let's console log this data. Let's call the function down here. Now if I refresh the page, you can see the browser asks me to enable the GPS. Try to enable it, and in the console log, we have these data. Amazing. So to not lose the GPS data, we store it in the local storage. We need to destructure an object from data. The data will be latitude and longitude. Now let's pass them to the local storage. Great. Up here we need to get our data from the local storage. Now set a condition. If we have stored location, we return an object of some data, otherwise we will return our queue data. Inside the object we will have latitude and longitude coming from the local storage. Also, we are going to ask for GPS if there is no data stores in local storage. Now let's test it. Cool. That is my location's data. Now we could successfully implement GPS in our weather app. That is all features that we have in our weather app. Alright friends, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more tutorials like this, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and give a subscribe to my channel. See you in the next videos.